who know me know that I'm not often at a loss for words. For that and for your support. I'm Sarah Palin, and I think you can see Alaska from here. I wanted to talk today about a few things, because it has been an extraordinary year, not just for me, but for many of us in the community. But before I do that, I want to recognize something that is important to me. Today marks the day that was my first day at work as Donna, 9 years ago, October 4th, 1999. And when we talk about heroes, I find the simple act of showing up at work as your true self takes heroism. I find the simple act of being your authentic self and getting on an airplane takes heroism. I find being who you are in a world that tries to define you and tries to control you into a little box takes heroism. And so although we talk about heroes as though it was something that happened to a special few, I think we all need to acknowledge the courage that comes with being authentic and the heroism that is the bond that holds this community together, because that, to me, is the cement that makes us a community. We are not a community simply because we share experiences that other people can't understand. We're not a community simply because we choose to be different. So we huddle together in some kind of life that is somehow different from other people. I refuse to acknowledge that anything about any of us here, specific to being who we are, is in any way sick, perverted, morally corrupt, or anything that needs to be corrected, healed, or cured. Because that is what binds us. It's the authenticity, it's the courage, and it's the heroism that makes me proud to be a transgender person and to stand up to those who try to make me feel sorry. And I'm never going to be sorry. There's one person here I just want to take a minute to acknowledge, because she helped me get to that day. When we look at the course of our lives, there are people who help us. And Maria Di Nicola, I would just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for helping. We are a long line of people. I remember sitting at home as a child, confused at why I felt differently. I remember what it's like to deal with the pain and the fear and the guilt and the shame that comes with recognizing that you're not normal. But the fact of the matter is that my journey has been much more than simply becoming Donna. It's becoming who I was meant to be in the first place. And I think it's really important that we recognize that there are no boundaries here, that any attempt to try to put the transgender community into some neat little box where some are better than others is misguided and wrong, that we are all in this together and we need to recognize and embrace each other as a community based on those key high moral principles, and we don't need to make each other feel bad about who or what we are or where we've come from. George Bernard Shaw said, "I am of the opinion that my life belongs to the community, and as long as I live it, it is my privilege to do for it whatever I can." And I feel that way. There are those who will tell me that I used to be transgender, but now I'm a man, or now I'm a woman. I will always be transgender. I will always wake up and I will appreciate the fact that my journey has been different. I will appreciate that I have been given the opportunity to experience life in ways that few other people ever do. And it's one of those things to be able to be in a position of leadership, Sometimes you don't ask for that. I didn't ask to be on the board of the Human Rights Campaign. I didn't ask to be on their business council, helping to give direction to workplace policy. I didn't ask for Joe Solomons to stand here at this podium last year and make promises to us that he would break 2 weeks later. But I did ask that they hold themselves accountable, and I did quit the day that my principles were forfeited, were put to the test. The reasons I got involved in that organization was because I believe that we are one community, that we cannot be broken, that rights for all is the only option, and that nobody can take those things away. When I left that organization, I did it with a flourish. But there was no hesitation. There was no reluctance. And there are those who asked me, don't you think that you would have been more effective if you had stayed and you could have continued to press change from the inside? And that might have been true, but the fact of the matter is that is now someone else who needs to do that. Because once trust is broken, it's difficult to regain. I trusted because I like to see the good. I trusted because promises were made, and I like to believe commitments kept. I like to believe that human rights really are human rights. They're not rights for some. That that equal rights and anything less is not equal rights. The reason that's important is because it sends a message to the rest of society and to us that we're somehow not worthy. It sends a message that this group of people is somehow different, is somehow not acceptable, somehow hasn't gone through the pain and hasn't suffered enough to be able to deserve things that most people in this country take for granted. I don't believe that. I don't believe in this whole notion that we need to do more education so that other people need to be more comfortable with us. I do believe we have to do that anyways. I believe that that's what each of us can do in our schools, in our workplaces, in our homes. Being authentic is not simply acknowledging that we're trans, it's that we're courageous enough to be who we are. And that courage is contagious. Other people will take a message from your pride, from your demeanor, from your dignity, and they will be able to live those things in their own lives, whether they're trans or not. And that's why it's so important that we educate. Not because we're different, but because we exhibit traits that other people want, because other people admire them. And those are the things we need to appreciate in ourselves, because those are the things that make us very special. So when we talk about being normal, we're not normal. We're better than normal. And that is what is going to take us to where we need to go.